issues, especially healthcare. They thought that with the centralized bureaucracy that existed in Ontario, with the Ministry of Health, that all the decision-making authority vested and rested here in Southern Ontario and Toronto, and that all of those decisions oftentimes did not reflect, did not consider, did not understand, did not get the reality of what was Northern Ontario. People would come into my office on a regular basis with that complaint. They said they don't get it. So when we rolled out LHINs 3 or 4 years ago, and if people want to stand in their place and say they're not doing a good job, they need to get better, they're still evolving, they're only about 3 years old, they want to cast some criticism and say they can do better, I'm okay with that. That's fine. But it sounds to me like the opposition parties want to throw them out. They want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I assume they're going to cancel them. If they had the opportunity and the privilege to represent the people of the province of Ontario in government, sounds to me like they would throw them out, cancel them. What would it mean if they do that? Well, back to the way it was, I suppose. Back to re-centralizing all the decision-making back into Southern Ontario. Taking decision-making away, in my context, from the Northwest LHIN, headquartered in my riding of in the city of Thunder Bay, representing my riding of Thunder Bay-Atikokan. They want to take all the decision-making away from them, put it back here in Southern Ontario. I don't favor that. They want to take all the jobs back. They want to take all the investment back. They want to take all the power and the authority back and put it back down here in Toronto. I don't favor that. You want to tell me the LHINs aren't working as well as they should? Fair game. Let's make them better. But I don't want to get rid of them. What's next? You want to get rid of the LHINs and bring all the authority and decision-making back down here on healthcare? Or you want to do it on education too? School boards, trustees, we're going to get rid of them as well? So that their local impact on decision-making in Northwestern Ontario and in Thunder Bay is the same? We'll bring all that decision-making back down here to Southern Ontario? Put all that in Toronto as well? Don't get it, Speaker. They've decided that LHINs, as I've said, are going to be this bureaucratic political piñata. They have been for about 6 months or a year, and I guess going forward into the next election it's going to stay that way for a while. God bless. But I'll tell you, as somebody that represents a Northern Ontario riding, I don't favor it. If they're not working perfectly, that's okay. You can make that criticism. And there have been times when I've been sitting in my office watching some of the communications that come out, I pause and think as well and find that it's not perfect. But I'm very interested in people in Thunder Bay, in Atikokan, in Oliver Papoonge, in Marathon, in Manitowash, having some control and input through their LHIN, through that board of directors, in terms of local decision-making and in terms of how those billions of dollars that we invest in healthcare are spent. When I was first elected, stakeholder after stakeholder would come into my office and complain about the fact that hospitals historically in the province of Ontario would always overspend their budgets, and the government of the day, no matter who it was, would always accommodate that over-expenditure, and they would find the money to keep funneling it into the hospitals. And all of those other healthcare stakeholders who delivered services in the province of Ontario would feel like they were constantly getting shortchanged and not have enough money to deliver the services as they saw fit or as they wished they could have. Well, what do the LHINs do? One of the things we let the LHINs do is sign accountability agreements with their hospitals. So now they go in on an annual basis, the hospitals know you get X, you sign on the dotted line, and you don't get any more. You go over, we got a problem. And so the other healthcare providers who get some of that $45 billion that we spend every year on healthcare in the province of Ontario, which by the way is 15 billion more per year than when we came in 2003, now those other healthcare providers like that, they get it. That's one of the authorities that the LHINs have. And so they set that standard. They set the template and they help with that sort of decision making and keep it local. And they can send those resources where they think they're best needed. Are they perfect? No, they're not. That's not a criticism. That's an observation. Speaker, one of the things that we brought back when it comes to transparency and accountability, freedom of information, and my friend across the way from Durham, I'm interested in sharing this one with him, and perhaps if he does a 2-minuter, he can explain it to me because I'm not sure why they did this. We brought back freedom of information, accessibility to Hydro One and OPG. I didn't say we gave access to Hydro One and OPG. I said we had to give it back to them, which of course implies that they used to have it, but somebody took it away. Why would somebody take freedom of information, accessibility, away from the people in the province of Ontario when it came to Ontario Power Generation and Hydro One. I think it was the opposition that took it away from them. I'm not sure why. Maybe my friend from Durham, if he's doing a 2-minuter, will be able to tell us why they did it. We had to bring it back and give it to them. Perhaps my friend over there will be able to tell us why. Speaker, municipalities, when it comes to this particular legislation, are going to remain exempt. They are not subject to the provisions of this legislation, and the reason is quite clear. Municipalities have, beyond what flows to them from the province of Ontario, significant revenue streams that are non-provincial in nature. And we feel that, given the residential property tax base, which is the bulk of, I would say, in the context of most municipalities, represents their biggest revenue stream, we feel like it's not for us to be dictating to the municipalities in this particular piece of legislation how and what it is they should do with that money. So when it comes to Bill 122, this particular piece of legislation, we are not going to tell municipalities how and what they may do with that money. Now, having said that, I don't mind saying that in my community, in my riding of Thunder Bay-Atikokan, that I'd like to think and believe that the municipal councillors there, past and present, the mayor, past and present, people interested in any issue of relevance when it comes to the expenditure of provincial dollars, don't feel that they necessarily would need to go out and hire a lobbyist to get access to the decision makers in the government of Ontario. I would like to think they feel and have had the experience that since my election in 2003, I'm their conduit. But having said that, and I could say the same for my colleague from Thunder Bay Superior North, that they see us, they know we're there to work for them, they know we're there to fight for them, and make their case to the province of Ontario. And I'm sure that all the MPPs here feel that way when they work with their mayors and councils and reeves and wardens all across the province. For that reason, we left the municipalities exempt. We don't feel that they need to be part of this particular piece of legislation, and as a result of that, they will remain exempt. Speaker, there's been some discussion. The member from the member from Welland, who spoke earlier, talked about his perception of one of the holes in the legislation, that the legislation only deals with public tax dollars. Well, that's what the Auditor General's report dealt with. The legislation, Bill 122, is responding to the Auditor General's report. So we're saying we don't think it's okay for you to take public tax dollars. We don't understand why you would need to in the first place as a hospital or a LHIN. Why do you need to take public tax dollars and hire a lobbyist? We're responding to the Auditor General. We don't think they should either. So he went on to say, well, they left a big loophole in the legislation, that they're going to bring it in-house, that they're going to find through their other revenue streams, and hospitals have other revenue streams. They get money through parking, they get money from televisions in the hospital rooms, they get money through private donations and foundations. Those funds are there, they're up to the discretion of the hospital boards, I would guess, to use as they see fit. And perhaps from time to time they might find a circumstance, maybe they're working with an MPP who they don't think has access, I don't know. Maybe they're working with somebody, I don't need to mention any ridings, maybe they feel there's a need that they could justifiably make their case, that they can't get forward, they can't move their issue ahead, they want to use that money that's been donated privately by the people that are making donations. Well, I guess that's going to be up to them. If there are others who feel differently, that's fine, but if I'm somebody who's contributing to a foundation, if I'm privately making my contribution to a hospital foundation, I think that I'd be a little bit reluctant to listen to somebody in a political party telling me how I thought it was okay for that money to be spent. I'm not sure we necessarily want to go that way. Speaker, we have moved the yardsticks significantly forward when it comes to issues related to transparency and accountability in the province of Ontario. People know that. We have reintroduced transparency and accountability in areas of provincial jurisdiction, OPG and Hydro One, that used to have it, that had that capacity removed by previous governments, by previous parties in the province of Ontario. By any standard, we have moved the yardsticks significantly forward. And should it be the will of the legislature, should Bill 122 pass, over the course of the next few weeks, this legislation is going to build on work that was previously done by our government, and will continue to enhance transparency and accountability for people in the province of Ontario.